Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Landmark, your go-to podcast for navigating the complexities of the property and development industry. I'm your host, James Bailey, Managing Partner at Bruton Knowles, and today we're going to take some time to revisit the achievements and challenges that have defined our year in 2024, and then take a look at what we think 2025 might hold for us and our clients. Joining me today is Dorian Wragg from our commercial property team, Ian Pitt, head of our national valuation team, and John Amos, who leads our rural services team. All three play pivotal roles in the business and help drive growth and improve client delivery, and are able to provide insights into the sectors they work in daily. So, grab your coffee or plug in during your commute. This is your all-access pass to Bruton Knowles' journey and vision. So the key achievements in 2024 for Bruton Knowles at a high level view. I think we've had a significant year in terms of growth of the business. We opened in Bury St Edmunds, principally off the back of delivering to UKPN, Cambridge County Council, Network Rail and the Broads Authority, which enables us to extend our professional reach into the Eastern region. We acquired a practice in Exeter, Herrera Goss, which significantly strengthens our southwest reach, and also adds commercial management to our professional portfolio. Our national valuation team has grown significantly this year. We've added 11 valuers to the team so far in 2025, so we need to add one more in December to reach the 12. But that's really been about strengthening our presence in the regions to deliver better to our banking clients and provide greater coverage, and that plan will continue to evolve in 2025 as we continue to expand into Scotland, with recruits joining us early in 2025 in that part of the world. U&I has continued to grow, so our infrastructure division, with significant wins for UKPN, a significant upturn in work for Thames, recent win for Wales and West, and the development of our business in Scotland, which will probably see us focus increasingly on renewables and other work in Scotland in 2025. Land development team has had another strong year, dealing with strategic land all the way through to residential investments. I think we've all been pleased how well that's held up despite the wider economic difficulties and circumstances that we find ourselves in the UK. I think the standout really for 2025 in terms of the overall business, from my position as managing partner, has been our recruitment strategy. I think we've attracted some key talent to support our services to clients this year. It's been the best year for recruitment I can remember, and that will certainly continue in 2025 to align with our growth plans. What's the reason we've been so successful on recruitment? Well, I think a lot of it's to do with flexible working. That's certainly a big factor. We trust our staff to work, and as long as the trust is met with appropriate behaviours, we're happy to support people's work-life balance, and that does work very well for everybody concerned. I think in terms of the in-house recruitment team, we've got a lot better at targeting the right calibre of people, and understanding our culture better, and fit is key to identifying the right people to come and join Bruton Knowles and work with us. In terms of challenges, I think the standout challenge for me, I would just summarise as the wider UK economy. I would describe it in terms of business as not helpful at all. The cost of delivering work has increased again in 2024, and I think we've found, like many businesses, that we simply don't have the ability to pass all of that cost on to clients, particularly where we're on fixed rate contracts. It simply erodes margin, hinders investment, and in a longer term cycle does significant damage to all businesses. I think the national insurance increase in April is just going to add to this in 2025, and we'll probably touch upon that later. I think clients themselves have been grappling with UK initiatives and targets, particularly around net zero 2030. It's less than 6 years away to deliver massive change, yet underpinned by what effectively is a nil growth economy. For my personal consultancy work, I doubt that the public sector has neither the funds or the trained specialist people to hit the targets that are being required of them. It's not a defeatist view, that. I think it's just a realistic one. I think those two challenges will exist and be very prevalent in 2025 as well.
Hello, I'm Dorian Wragg. I'm partner at Bruton Knowles. I'm head of the Commercial and Professional Services faculty, based in Gloucester, but running the national commercial team. We've had lots of going on. If I look back last year to where we were, end of 23, looking at 24, the economy was quite flat. We had continued pressure on wage growth. We had one of the lowest consumer spending rates in the G7. Lack of inward investment. The office market was fairly flat. Retail was again fairly flat, and the shining light was the industrial sector that was booming because of lack of supply. And really, we were hanging our hopes on a change in interest rates to foster both consumer confidence, to foster inward investment and growth and investment back in the property sector. We've seen some of those this year, but it has been quite a congested year. In terms of trends, quite interestingly, I think, from my perspective, has been the impact of geopolitics and how that has played an impact on decision making, even at local level. We've seen lots of turbulence around the world, wars, conflict, climate change, political shifts, and increasingly with a sophisticated investment clientele, we're seeing that playing through in the occupier and the investment market. And that's also created a lot of buffeting through the year as well. There's been consistent change, which has knocked confidence. Brexit, the tailwinds of Brexit have played a part of it in our relationship with Europe and how that's planning out. And that's affected the industrial sector, distribution sector. COVID is still having an impact as well in terms of return to work. That's sort of settling down now. I think the UK and Europe are settling on this 2 to 3 days a week back in the office. Over in the States, they've had very little return to the office. Most people are working remotely. Over in Asia, they're working 5 days a week. And again, when you're talking to corporate occupiers, all these factors are being played into their property strategies, how they're using buildings, especially in the office market, where they're now looking at looser use of buildings, bringing in leisure and recreation as well as commercial use. Interest rates have been, I think, the biggest issue this year. Still relatively high. We were expecting a more substantial shift. We were looking at a drop probably in Q2 last year, and then some finessing as we went through the year just to deal with peaks and troughs as they cropped up. We haven't really seen that. We've seen almost an inverse of that, a very cautious approach from the Bank of England. And that's had an impact both from the investor perspective and developer perspective in terms of investment and building. We've seen more sale and leasebacks this year as businesses are selling property assets to release equity rather than borrowing money to invest back in their businesses from banking sector. That's been a quite interesting move. And then personally, the cost of living crisis is still very apparent. We haven't seen that growth in consumerism, which we've seen in the States and other parts of the globe. And so we haven't seen that kickstart to retail, which we're all hoping to see this year. And I think the final thing in terms of macroeconomics has been the elections. It's been the largest election year ever this year. Half the world's gone to the vote. 12 million voters have gone to the polls. And we've seen some really interesting political outcomes. France has had a swing. The UK, we've ended 14 years of conservative politics with a Labour government that's quite interventionist in the property sector. And that's had implications. And of course, we've got the US with Trump and his political agenda as well in terms of potential tariff wars and even illegal immigration. If you're exporting 11.5 million people, that's going to have a big impact on the US economy, factored in at about 4 to 6%, which is fairly seismic. And that could cause inflation across the rest of the Eurozone. So lots of stuff going on, lots of stuff for us to filter. And alongside that, we've had planning reform, we've had health and safety legislation such as the Building Safety Act, Fire Safety Act, potential reform to 1954 Act. The sustainability agenda is picking up and gathering pace. And not to forget technology and AI and how that's playing into the property sector. So we've had lots of stuff to think about, lots of information we've had to unwrap this year to advise clients properly. In terms of trends in the property world, I think just high level rather than going through a granular level, there's been a sustained flight to quality across all sectors. It started out in the office sector, where office occupiers were taking smaller but higher quality space at higher rents. And we're now seeing that play across all sectors: office, retail, residential and industrial. Office sector, they've done it really to retain staff. The corporate occupiers are very clear and conscious on their green targets and credentials. And of course, the funds as well can afford to pay the premium for new office buildings, which is essentially what they're looking for. And there's a premium of about 10%, both on rent and capital values, for buildings that are sustainable and meet the ESG criteria. So we're seeing that going on. We're seeing the flip side of that, of course. If you're building new stock, you've got obsolescence, and the property world is struggling with the question of obsolescence, how we deal with embedded carbon, how we repurpose buildings, do we demolish? And I think the recent M&S case on Oxford Street, where they've had consent to demolish an Art Deco building, a flagship store that was approved by Angela Rayner, is quite interesting. On the one hand, from a property perspective, a developer perspective, you'll see the green light. The government is now allowing the property world to demolish buildings that are seen as potentially end of life, and we can repurpose space. I think the flip side of that is embedded carbon argument, and strongly, morally, financially, should we be looking to demolish buildings that can be repurposed? And that's probably the biggest question we've got going forward into 25 and beyond, how we deal with that. Retail, again, prime retail, prime shopping centres, the Westfields are all doing really well. We're seeing space being taken up, rents are now being pushed up, secondary retail struggling across the UK. We've seen vacancy rates drop from 18% down to 13%. Regionally, they've dropped from 20% to 8% across the sector. So some good movement there, new brands coming in, but more to do. And the industrial sector is beginning to struggle. I think tenants are now calling the top of the market on rents. They've had the impact of national insurance contributions, minimum wages, and they're factoring that through their businesses. They're demanding, they want new space, but from a developer perspective, being able to deliver that with land values and building costs is quite a struggle. So at a high level, progress this year. I think we're in a better place ending 24, but more to be done next year.
Thank you, Dorian. Some really, really interesting items there, which I think some of those will recircle around before the end of this podcast. But now it's time to move on to rural services, and I'd like to hand over to John Amos.
Hello, John Amos, Head of Rural, based in Leominster and Gloucester offices. Yes, we've had a busy year in rural. We've been working all through the year to try and get our national growth developed and expand as much as we're able. We've been able to take on a wider and more diverse client base right across the country, particularly strong now in the southwest over the last year. And we've increased our interaction with other offices and other faculties within the business, and cross-pollinating business, which has been great. We've had quite a significant growth in the rural team, particularly with higher level good quality rural surveyors, which has significantly improved our ability to deliver our services right across the UK. In terms of upskilling, we've spent significant time training and developing and working with our team, particularly with the younger members and the less experienced members, to try and target well-rounded skill sets for them to and offer support to give our valued rural clients more interaction. It's been a busy year looking at new initiatives for us across the sector, and three significant steps there. The first was in February, biodiversity net gain was introduced to the building industry, whereby any loss of biodiversity has to be offset either on or off site. And we've worked extensively with a national provider over the last 12 months or so, and we've assessed well over 20 sites nationally, each between 50 and 100 acres for off-site BNG, and that's right across the UK, and already the interest in that is starting to build. We've got 4 sites signing off on legals this month, and we've got significant take-up deals coming in the new year. Field scale battery storage has also been very interesting to us on the basis that the power across the UK is hard to get and hard to deliver of our infrastructure, and therefore being able to store surplus electricity on a field scale through the downtimes is really important. Again, we've been looking nationally at this, and the big delivery challenges for us have been connectivity, so that there's either a pylon or a service centre into the grid, and then actually available capacity both in and out to deliver that. The third initiative has been through solar, which of course solar has been with us for a number of years, but there's definitely been a surge again to bring this back in vogue through the year, not least by our new government coming in July and actively pushing straight away for more solar and other renewable energy, and several big solar parks that have been stuck in planning for years were pushed through very quickly. There are certain peaks and opportunities there which we've been looking at again nationally, but there are several significant sites now coming forward which we're really pleased about. The biggest challenge for the rural team, without a shadow of a doubt, are the likely inheritance tax changes from the budget here now just a few weeks ago. This has been the biggest change in agriculture for a generation. It's over 40 years since we've had a capital tax on farms and land of any significance, because of the ability to use agricultural property relief and also business property relief for farms and land in particular, but also other services on the farms. The government in the budget announced that they're going to take on another 5,000 staff for compliance. And so I think we can all take a view that they mean business on this. And a lot of people didn't immediately realise that it's not just the farms and the land that are being challenged here, but the business property relief goes across all of the machinery, the livestock, the buildings, all of the commodities and other assets. And then just to round it off beautifully, also pensions and SIPs. And I feel a lot of people miss that early on and just starting to pick this up. The government tell us it only affects about 500 farmers a year. I would definitely disagree with that. I personally would have spoken to in excess of 50 farmers already that are extremely worried and literally sleepless nights over this. And to date, I've not found one single farmer that hasn't got a problem going forward. We're working really hard at the moment to try and service as many people as we can to get the initial conversations going. The white paper was promised in January. Pundits are suggesting it's probably going to be July before we see that. So we've got a long period of time before we get the final rules. We've promoted over the last couple of years massively how important it is to work together as professionals. And we talk a lot in the rural sector about the 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars are that you should always have your solicitor, accountant, bank manager, and agent involved in key discussions over changing your business. And I have to say that never has it been more important to get those meetings lined up. And I don't believe we can wait for 6 or 8 months for the white paper. I think we need to start looking at these now. The tax changes are going to come in on the 5th of April 26 and the pensions in 27. So time is against us and we need to push on. In terms of new initiatives within the rural, I think that the focus from the budget fallout in agriculture is going to be pretty consuming for us. We're booking in big numbers of meetings per week already, right across the region. And in addition to the actual planning for the family farm to try and keep that farm together, we're already having conversations with people who feel they're going to have to sell assets. But equally, people are looking to buy as well. Whilst the tax is going to be reduced from 40 to 20% effectively by the reliefs, and anything over £1 million of either agricultural property relief or business property relief is going to be taxed at probably 20%. 20% is still better than nothing in some people's eyes. So I think there still will be buyers and there will be sellers. I've no doubt, and Ian might have a view on this as well, but values are going to be affected, but it's too early to say how that might look. But the message that we're giving to everybody is that good advice has never been so important. And as an accountant said to me very recently, good valuers have never been so valuable. So I think we've got a busy year ahead.
Thank you, John. Some very, very interesting issues again impacting the rural sector. And again, we'll circulate back to some of those before the end of this podcast. I'd now like to introduce Ian Pitt to talk to us about the valuation sector.
Hi, I'm Ian Pitt, Head of the National Valuation Faculty. In the world of valuations, certainly loan security valuations, speed has always been very important, whilst not compromising the quality of the advice that we provide to our clients. Given the continued improvements in the whole valuation process, including automated valuation software and the fact that these systems can significantly assist in a large part of the preparation of valuation reports, there is an even greater demand on valuation firms to reduce their turnaround times to meet the needs of the lenders, where everything in property transactions continues to be so time critical, and the faster a valuation report can be completed and issued can mean the difference between a transaction going through or not. We've seen this push to reduce turnaround times from instruction to inspection to providing the report continue to gather pace throughout the year, and valuers who are able to meet these demands from clients whilst maintaining high quality impartial valuation advice can really benefit in seeing an increase in the number of instructions that they receive. The most important thing to consider is that speed and delivery of a valuation report must not compromise quality of the advice that the valuer is providing, as rushing a report can result in mistakes being made. So as long as a report is still to a high quality and passes all internal quality control and checks, then the reader can have comfort that the advice they receive is as they expect it to be, and they can rely on the report for lending purposes. Investors have an appetite for homes of multiple occupation and purchasing potential conversion opportunities in regions where an Article 4 directive has not been introduced. They see an opportunity to maximise the value of an asset through conversion of standard residential accommodation into an HMO where the income stream can significantly outweigh that achieved from a standard single occupancy residential property for relatively low conversion costs. However, this market has seen an increase in activity over recent years, and this has been the same picture for 2024. This puts more pressure on the valuer to ensure that the valuation advice we provide to lenders who are funding such conversions is accurate, and the product that the developers are looking to bring to the market meets the demand that they expect to receive. You need to be alive to the more challenging sectors that you operate in terms of asset type, and also know the nuances of all the different regions across the country, as properties in different locations can be very different in terms of value and ability to trade successfully. In our national valuation team, we can offer impartial and relevant advice at a local level to ensure that we provide the best advice that meets our clients' needs. We undertake inquiries on various statutory as well as environmental matters that may impact on a property and set out the results of these inquiries within our valuation reports, and where necessary, recommend further investigations take place to ensure that our clients are provided with all pertinent matters relating to the property. As part of the valuation process, we undertake independent inquiries relating to the value of the asset by reference to relevant comparable transactions to ensure that the client has as much information available to meet their requirements, either by establishing the current market value for internal or accounting purposes or as part of an acquisition of that property. It is important to analyse and adjust that comparable evidence and then adopt an appropriate rate per square foot to the subject property from the conclusions drawn out of the research that has been undertaken. Our impartial advice can be the subject of challenge, especially if the values reported will not meet the expectations of the reader. If we feel our valuation figures which we be reporting are significantly different to those expected by the client, we'll discuss this at an early stage to ensure we can meet those expectations, or there is more information that can be provided to us to support the estimated market values. There have been further advancements, and the regular use of automated valuation models are critical in delivering reports in reduced timeframes, and software such as Valos, which we now use for all our Red Book valuation reports, can significantly improve a valuer's turnaround time to speed up the whole process from start to finish. I can only see this continuing into next year. AI and use of improved systems is travelling so quickly, you need to be ahead of these changes to keep on top of them and ensure that your advice meets the needs of the clients whilst using these systems and platforms that are all available. There are changes to the Red Book in January 2025, and we will ensure that all our templates are amended to reflect these changes. Internal training will take place in advance of these changes to provide our valuers with the most up-to-date picture of the impact of those changes. It's important to keep ahead of these rather than incorporate them after they've been implemented by the RICS. What advice I'd give to clients is listen to your professional advisors. We're expected to comment on more and more environmental and statutory matters that can impact on the value of the property. And whilst we may not always be able to provide a definitive answer to some of the questions that come out of these usual searches and inquiries during a transaction, we can offer advice on who to speak to in order to address anything that requires further clarification. Don't go for the cheap option in terms of professional fees quoted. Customers regularly go out and obtain a number of quotes and historically have gone for the cheapest quote. However, speed of turnaround and how quickly the advice can be provided seems to be a critical factor nowadays. We've always seen that recruitments are difficult, and as you want to appoint people who will support continued growth in your teams and maintain the high standards that have been created. Recruitment in some regions is a lot harder than others, and we've worked hard over the last few years to fill those voids. In the valuation team, we have a new valuer joining our Glasgow team in early February, and 1 week later, a valuer from Newcastle upon Tyne is joining us to strengthen our new North East offering.
Thanks everyone for your thoughtful views there on your relevant sectors within the business. I think probably now is the time to open it up to a wider discussion as a group. So putting the question out there to all of you, what do we consider Bruton Knowles' greatest achievement in 2024 was, and why? Ian, what do you think? What's your view on that?
Well, I don't think there's just one greatest achievement. I think there's a number that we've been very successful in throughout the year. We've seen continual growth. We've had new office openings, a successful acquisition of Haragos in Exeter that strengthens our professional team offering, and national tender wins in a number of factories, so running across different service sectors.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention our tender team because they don't always get the sort of the bells and whistles awards that they deserve, because they do a great job during the year putting tenders together. And Sam, who heads it up, is a great supporter of each of the skill areas within the business. And I think 2024 has been a very successful year for our bid and contracts division within the firm, where effectively we're on key property frameworks in the public utility sectors that supplies all sorts of professional opportunities for us. But of course, you have to bid and you have to win the work. So there's a continuum within Bruton Knowles every day, every week, of analysing and then reviewing and putting bids together with various professionals within the organisation. So I think it's fair to say Ian's right. We've had another successful year in 2024 in terms of our bid programme. John, what's your wider thoughts in terms of 2024?
Yeah, I think I'd perhaps add to that with the tenders and the bids team, James, that it's been really interesting from the rural sector that we seem to be increasing our cross-pollination with other departments and working together. And so often the bids require more than just one skill set and one faculty. And so it's been really interesting for us. So, for example, some of the national tenders require BNG now, which they didn't last year. And we've been able to slot in. Equally, there may be a rural sector within a bid that we can just drop in and support in bids. And that cross-pollination has gone right across development, the planning sector, U&I, valuation. We seem to all just be passing bits and pieces around, which is good for the growth, I believe.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the strengths of being a general practice. I know a lot of firms specialise these days, and we've got niche operators within professional services and surveying. But I think the joy of being a general practice is exactly that, John. It's that cohesion between teams and working together to deliver for clients across a whole range of skill areas. Dorian, what's What's your sense of 2024?
I think it's been a very successful year for BK. I would take a slightly different slant. While tendering has been successful, that's been great. I think as a firm, we've addressed or been able to address some of the biggest issues facing the property sector, and issues that are going to outlast my career probably. Sustainability is a huge issue across all of our sectors, and we're having to address it. We've got the right teams on board now where we can start to look at whole life planning on buildings, really start looking holistically on how we're managing property portfolios and investments, right the way through the lifespan of buildings, through construction planning, and then end of life planning 20 years down the road. How are we looking to repurpose those buildings? So that whole sustainability issue for me, how we're looking at carbon management, energy management, I think we're going to see this shift towards more of a localized energy management storage, which plays into the work that John's doing on battery storage at the local level. Data centers, very much a thing at the moment. I think we'll start seeing that breaking down as well to local levels. And again, that will play across a number of fields that we operate in. Technology throughout the firm, we've made huge strides on bringing technology on board, which takes some of the drudgery out of surveying, and allows us to concentrate on the higher value work, the work that actually adds values to clients. And that's really what allows us to compete with the bigger firms and win some of these tenders, and using AI. There's not many firms our size looking at AI. It is a big issue for this sector, how we use it commercially in a commercially viable way. Up to now, prop tech has been a fairly clunky tool that hasn't really transitioned into the property world. And we're now seeing AI really fundamentally changing that. We're using it to do various marketing tools. We're working out how we can use it across the firm. And so for me, personally, the big ticket item, sustainability, grasping technology, we've got inside specialists advising us on that now. That's been, I think, the biggest achievement for 24.
Thanks, Dorian. Yeah, I think certainly the piece around IT is an important thing. We've invested heavily in it. It's important to say that none of the people in this room are actually involved in integrating it. We have an IT director who's extremely good at that. But I also think the recruitment piece for all professional services is key. I think technology is helping to fill some of those resource gaps that the UK economy has experienced, and we're no different in surveying. There is a general shortage out there of good people. So as we move forward, I think technology will build a platform for firms like us to grow. It's not just about bringing lots and lots of people in. It's about delivering better, smarter, more effectively. And a lot of that is going to be pinned around IT and process as we grow in certain skill areas within the business. So I think a lot of that is going to continue. The investment program will continue into 2025, mainly because it's a very modern way of working, I think. So we've just been touching upon investment and recruitment. I think, really, how do we foresee market conditions impacting recruitment and team growth in each of our respective teams? I think the overview from where I sit is it's still a big challenge. I think for a business of our size, just under 200 people, it's about having the right people coming into the business, a good fit for them and for us, and supported with modern working methods that, I think as Dorian said, takes away quite a lot of the drudgery, ensures quality and enables people to do better. John, how do you think rural is going to be impacted upon the sort of wider market conditions in 2025?
Well, I think we're definitely going to have a volatile couple of years now, because logic would say that the impact of the inheritance tax bill is going to see land prices challenged short term. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But how that comes, it might be difficult to gauge, because there might not be too much come to the market either. We have just launched the farm now recently, and there is interest in that, but it's not as buzzy as it would have been 6 or 12 months ago.
Right.
On the other hand, our team launched a 20-acre small holding 3 weeks ago, and it's already sold subject to contract with 2 cash bids over the guide price. So it's going to be a bumpy market, I think it's probably fair to say, James.
Yeah, I think that's probably right, John. Ian, what do you think in terms of the overall commercial valuation sector?
Well, as I said earlier, recruitment is always difficult, and within valuation, it's very important to appoint the right valuer to fit in with the team, to adapt to the local region they operate within, which we can offer as a service, being a national valuation panel firm, and able to understand and adapt to the automated valuation models that are all in place now. They've got to have the right level of experience. They've got to be suitably qualified, and in order to make sure that they provide a high quality report that we expect from our valuation team and that the clients expect from us. We've had a very good year this year in recruitment, but we've found recruitment to be one where we've, at a personal level, have driven the recruitment from James and myself. Have worked very hard in identifying the right people to join our team, and that's worked very well because we can explain how our services can continue to grow within those regions that those people operate in. And we start the new year with more good quality recruits that are going to join our team to widen our offering even further.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that people buy into the challenge around growing into new regions and being supported by a central function that enables that national team of flexible workers across various regions in the UK to still be cohesive and to be mentored and managed, but feel as if they're a team, despite the fact that they're working on a very flexible basis. I think it's fair to say the valuation recruitment's been really successful in 2024. I don't see that changing in 2025, to be quite honest. Yeah. Dorian, what about your area of commercial activity?
I think it's an interesting time of recruitment in the commercial sector. We're seeing a transition. So as a sector, we've got lots of things going on. We're seeing, if you look at the retail sector, we're seeing technology coming in, holographic shop assistants, AI coming into it. Some amazing cutting edge technology coming into a sector, which I think makes it quite exciting. There's lots of regeneration going on, re-envisaging how we use property across all sectors, from residential through to industrial estates. There's this a sea change coming through. The problem we have, which I think is an industry problem, is that we tended to silo surveyors into one stick professional assets. And going forward in the commercial world, we need people who are adaptable. We need people who are curious. I had a great phrase yesterday at the RICS conference: people who could glimpse around the corner. And that's really what we want. We're in a world now where personally we can't influence the geopolitical world, the influences that are happening on the commercial sector as we have this interconnectivity. But we need people who can deliver business solutions, who can understand the web of factors and how they interrelate with each other. And above that, people who can communicate and can foster empathy with clients, with occupiers, understand their businesses, how they use space, how they want to use space. So we're looking, I think, for people who have a different skill set going forward. AI will take out, say, that the more day-to-day issues. We need people who want to engage with a sector that's moving really quickly, a fleet of foot, and have an ability to adapt to a changing market.
Thanks, Dorian. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the challenge is, I think people can tell in listening to this podcast, for property professionals, is it's a continually changing world out there, and we have to keep ourselves alive to what's happening just around the corner, as Dorian said. But it's about constant training and mentoring and importantly, bringing in the next generation of property professionals. What's one piece of advice you'd offer clients to prepare for the challenges of 2025 and the opportunities? Let's get back to you, Dorian, because I think you're still in the flow from the previous question.
I think there's two bits of advice for 25. One, sustainability. We've got 2035 coming down the line with the EPC regulations. We've got to, from COP, we've got to reduce carbon emissions by 81%. So looking at future-proofing your real estate assets is got to be very high on the agenda, and not least making sure you can still insure them in areas where we have flood risks and heat damage and a range of things that are going on. So protecting property, and above that, it's understanding your exit route. What's the lifespan of your investment? How are you going to get out of it? What's the route to exit?
Yeah, thanks, Dorian. John?
I think Ian touched on this earlier, but for the next 12 months or so, I think that the good advice is so important going into all the issues we're going to have around the tax changes, and cheapest is never going to be the best. High quality has got to be the way forward. As a rural team, we're really lucky because we've recruited over the last few years Jeff Coster, who was formerly head district valuer in the rural sector, who is very experienced in these fields, and then more recently Charlotte Hibbs, who joined us from a national firm as head of rural valuation. So we've got the tools to do the work, and as I mentioned earlier, it's not just us. We need to be working with the accountants, the solicitors and the banks to make sure that we deliver a complete product.
Yeah, absolutely. It's being part of that critical team. I think we know how to do that and to do it well. Ian?
Someone said to me recently, the only thing that's certain is the uncertainty that new year brings us. And I think that's, with all the events taking place at this present time, that's never been a more true statement. I completely support and echo Dorian's points about our social governance and responsibility of the environment that we're in. I agree with John. You've got to get the right advice, and it's not the cheapest advice that means you get the best advice for what you need. And you've got to embrace the changes that are taking place. You know, our professional institution are introducing changes at the beginning of the year, which are all around AI, automated valuation models, and we have to embrace those changes.
I think the problem is a lot of it feels very challenging, because I think that outside of surveying, the wider UK economy really is not helpful to what we're trying to do and what clients are trying to do. It's all about, and it'd be interesting with the new government, intervention is fine, but if it's in the form of barriers, it just makes it really difficult for businesses to be entrepreneurial, to be free thinking. I don't think as an economy we have created an environment for businesses to thrive. I think when you look at other economies with different corporation tax rates, and the last budget, no incentives at all. No, if you do X, we'll take Y off you in tax. It was all about the blunt instrument of, right, we're just going to tax, which I'm afraid will have a significant effect in 25 and 26, because businesses, given what's gone in since COVID and Brexit, cannot absorb costs in the way that I think the government thinks they can. So I'm afraid I expect probably unemployment to increase, particularly post-Christmas, when we've had the flush of the Christmas activity. I think January, February, March are going to be very dark months for retail, consumer spend, hospitality, and in professional services. You have to look critically at every single resource you're utilising, because we just can't absorb costs anymore in the way that we could 5 years ago. So, it's not going to be easy in 25, I don't think.
No, I mean, because I was talking to someone who's in the retail sector, and it's for a medium-sized business, it's £5 million, their bottom line, and they haven't got 5 million.
Hospitality's knackered. How hospitality comes out of this, I don't actually know.
Very badly, I think. I think the great fear for hospitality is they'll have a good Christmas. I think they're going to have some very dark months in 2025, because hospitality it's creaking anyway in terms of under-resourced. And when you put minimum wage into something like hospitality, oh dear. When you consider how many people go in a transitory way, students, people that are new to the country and stuff, that hospitality is a great way of absorbing people, just kills it. Yeah. It's just, and, people that run hotels and pubs are working long hours as it is for, surprisingly small returns. I don't think the government's really lifted the lid on how businesses actually work. I think they just see it as an opportunity to raise tax quickly. But I think the medium term is, they're just going to put businesses into liquidation. Yeah, but I just think it's the engine room of any economy is enterprise, I'm afraid, because you have to have enterprise to generate taxation in the first place. And I think the most disappointing thing was, where was the growth initiatives? She spent 2 years talking out of office about growth, gets into office, and then not a single initiative to grow the economy in any way, shape or form, which is for us, with our client base, our clients are trying to grow and develop and provide wealth to the country in lots of different ways. It's just, you can't underscore it enough. challenging. It's the word that just keeps coming out, isn't it? At every level.
I was on a farm at 7:30 this morning with a family farm. Son's 29 years of age. They were going to put up a large cattle building next year, and they've shelved it. They're not even spending the money.
Yeah.
The cost of doing it, and then on top of that, the thrill of paying 40% tax when dad passes.
Yeah.
It's uncertainty, isn't it? We are just increasingly risk averse, and there's nothing to steady the ship to give certainty. No, I agree. Across all sectors.
Because you have to have that underlying confidence, don't you, that people think it's going to be all right. They'll do their projections, they'll work out their costings and numbers, but the cost environment for the last 2 to 3 years across the whole of UK business has just been an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
You know, if you're marginal, you're going to go under. If you're in the midstream of doing okay, you're going to be incredibly unprofitable. And if you've been a very successful business, well, you're going to be less successful.
Yeah, but that phrase this year, isn't it? Survive till 25. I think you're going to have to be shifting that. I'm not sure. I was at 26. I'm sure you can come up with something.
Just take it. Survive 25.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
But I think that's where they are. I think everyone's gearing up for 25. That's going to look quite ambitious, and that's just been stalled back.
And I'm very sure that because of the smokescreen of the agricultural property relief, that many businesses haven't woken up and smelt the coffee. That actually they're getting shafted as well. And meeting at the rugby club last week, we were talking about sponsorship, and they were very intelligent business people who hadn't worked out. They've also been stiffed on it.
Yeah, it's the nuances, isn't it?
It's the £1 million BPR.
Yeah.
Don't matter whether you're a farmer or not. It's £1 million.
What I don't understand, though, what I understand with the whole budget is you can see this track record. The US economy came out because it promoted consumerism. People had confidence. They were spending in shops. They were spending in bars. They were buying new cars. And we've seen that elsewhere across the globe. The UK government had the ability to reset it, and they failed. And that would have been the accelerator. That would have been the thing that dragged all sectors forward. Just they missed a golden opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's embracing the kind of the market economy that says, you have to intervene, but only with an oil can to oil the wheels, isn't it? And that's where, to be fair, I think a budget that says, incentivization is about achieving things. So you'll only pay a certain level of tax if you've developed a certain level of income, which is how an economy grows.
Yeah.
The problem is, the economy is flatlined for years, and it's going to continue to flatline, which in terms of inward investment into the UK, in terms of domestic investment, it just all over time makes it a less good place to invest your money. And I'm afraid, that they've got to wrest themselves away from this because, in order to sort of build new schools and build new hospitals and stuff, you can't keep borrowing money. As a nation, we are living beyond our means now. You have to have success and growth. And that only comes from a thriving economy. Capitalist economy, which unfortunately at the moment we're just not in that zone, are we?
No. I was looking at the growth predictions yesterday. So Bank of England have got us 1.5% next year. CBRE that tend to be quite bullish actually in terms of predictions. They're at 1.8, OBR's at 2%, so really bearish. And that's at the back of government fiscal policy investing, consuming. So we're going to see this kicker. 2027, that all comes off the agenda. So how we are going to promote investment and growth in this 2-year window when we lose that government investment, that's going to be really key. And that can only come about through, really, I think some of these policies have got to change. The cost of this health and safety agenda, the amount that's adding on to build costs is huge. £20 a square foot, that's putting on resi build costs on high-rise city centre stuff. We've got to see a shift around that. And we need some sort of a tax change to promote growth.
Yeah, I think the tax system is we all understand how you pay for services, and it's easy to do it if you generate more tax. Now they've gone for the blunt instrument, but unfortunately there'll be unintended consequences, I think, in 26 and 27 around what they've done. And if I circle it back to us as a business, it's just another challenging year. 25. It's no different from 24. It'll be looking at cost, making sure everybody's doing the right job, recruiting the right people. There's no room there's just no margin, unfortunately, for anything that just doesn't work. So I don't think it's going to change. It just feels more of the same, really. But you're right. I think that 26, 27, I think will be we'll see it in rural with all the difficulties around the tax planning that's needed there and the stress and difficulties. Never mind the backdrop to rural, which is it's a challenging sector anyway. I think commercially it's harder. The planning system's interesting, isn't it? Because how they're going to free the planning system up in 5 years, bearing in mind, you need planning officers to make planning decisions. I don't think it's a local authority in the United Kingdom we deal with that hasn't got enough staff. End of. Doesn't matter where it is, north, south, east, west. You've got to find 300 to 400 trained planning officers to lubricate to make the system flow. It's all right having policies, and it's all right saying, we're going to intervene. But the fun, as we've talked about in our business, if you don't get the platform right, you can't grow.
No. I think it's really interesting, isn't it? They bought in. So arguably, we know for probably 4 years there's too much retail in the country, and yet the government's now bought in this high street auction system where if a landlord doesn't let an empty shop, the council can force a letting through and set the terms of the letting, instead of actually changing policy where you can take these things out of use and repurpose them. There is too much retail. So there's this sledgehammer to cracking up. Landlords won't purposely sit on an empty property. That's counterindicative.
But they're going to pay void rates. That's why there's so many charity shops in these underperforming retail centres, because at least they're not paying the business rates.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Below market rent, and it just undervalues the whole region as a result.
Yeah, and doing that, we've been championing it for years. This redevelopment town centres to get youngsters back into city centres, the over shops with no one stores anymore. And they, of course, then fuel that whole nighttime economy. So that's really what they could have been pushing and haven't missed. But look, on a good note, I would say that I think if you look at Europe, and it's such a mess, I think if you look at the UK, it does start to look attractive as an investment opportunity. That's the shining light that I can see.
Well, I think as well, there's a lot of very wealthy Americans that don't want to be ruled by Trump.
Yes.
So I think while the super rich in the UK are leaving because they don't like the tax regimes, you'll see a lot of high wealth Americans coming back into the country.
Yeah, I think stability is key, isn't it? I think if to be fair to the Tories, having sort of 3 or 4 different prime ministers, in 3 or 4 years didn't help anybody. I think stability is key because that helps people invest. But I still think that we need to think about the growth factor. That if the economy doesn't grow, which it in real terms, I don't think it is. I think even the Bank of England have revised their figures down each year from their original figure. We're just going to be in a really difficult place because in order to deliver capital projects and public sector spend, it's just going to come from borrowings.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I think you're beginning to see now where you have these large projects that we're involved in on the periphery on. Those global ambitions of bringing businesses from the outside are now beginning to be curtailed, and you're beginning to see developers looking just to reposition people within the country rather than that bigger ambition. And that's sort of death knell, isn't it? If we start buying into that, we've got to be ambitious. We need the right environment for, because we are we're well placed. We're a very stable economy. We have lots of things going for us. We need the right environment to be ambitious.
Yeah, I agree. So finally, to wrap up, in one word or phrase, how would you describe your hopes for Bruton Knowles in 2025? Dorian?
Well, I've had several goes at this. The one word that I think is stuck, I've written here and underlined it, is stability. We need stability. I'm sort of praying for a fairly boring 25.
That sounds a good wish list. Ian?
Very simple, continuing in growth and success.
John?
Onwards and upwards.
Very good. I think from my perspective, I think encompassing stability and growth is important for Bruton Knowles in 2025, as well as delivering to clients. It's difficult to sort of distill it down into one word, so I went. Thank you to our guests, Dorian Wragg, John Amos and Ian Pitt, for sharing their expertise and insights, and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Bruton Knowles is focused on delivering value to our clients and staying ahead of industry trends. As we move into 2025, we remain committed to identifying opportunities, addressing challenges, and maintaining the high standards that define our work. Be sure to subscribe for updates on future episodes. If you have questions, feedback, or topics you'd like us to explore, please reach out. If you're interested in learning more about how Bruton Knowles can support your business with insights, consultancy or direct support, don't hesitate to contact us. Visit our website or connect with a team directly. We're here to help you make the most of those emerging opportunities. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to connecting with you in the next episode.